And we're live. Welcome to the Reality OS with Tracy Connors and me, Peter Duke. How you doing today, Tracy?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Peter Duke?
I'm just trying to wipe the fog from my brain and try to figure out what the heck is going on because so many people seem to be in a daze and they look to me for some kind of guidance, and I'm not sure whether that's a good idea or not. How about you, Tracy?
I don't know. I haven't looked to you for guidance all week, but I guess I've been inundated with guidance requests myself. So if anybody knows anybody that needs guidance, share the link to the stream and bring them in here so we can do a live therapy session with them.
Yes, or they can do therapy on us.
Either way. I mean,
Yeah.
It's all the same, right? If you've ever been to a real therapist, at some point you start thinking, am I the patient or are you?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting when you study hypnosis, sometimes you start to realize that you do actually have to be in a little bit of a trance yourself in order to get the thing to work. And so it's kind of mutual trance experience, but one person's in control. So it's kind of like photography. When a photographer is taking your picture, both people have an agenda, but the photographer has the control because he's got his finger on the button. Hope Team J and K are feeling Shoplifter's remorse.
I think he means Joe and Kamala.
I don't think Joe feels anything. I think he's completely medicated. Like, people keep looking at Joe like he's got agency. And no. I don't see that at all. I mean,
see the thumbnail image that I made for today's show.
I mean, there's all these videos that keep popping up of him walking through the door and muttering to himself, "Salute the Marines," things like that.
Yeah, it is. It is happy dementia, Nikki. That's what it seems like.
Like, I don't, I think Joe Biden didn't do nothing. I mean, he just showed up. He's clearly not in control here. I mean, Jill Biden is definitely probably more of an existential threat than Joe at this point. Agency depends. It took me a second to figure that one out.
I know. I'm letting you slowly warm up to it. We want to go with that overlay. Yeah. Oh, no. Wait a minute. We want the black one. Stand by, everybody. There we are.
Very good. Very good. We're all black and white now.
Yeah.
Because it moves you from the realm of the known into the realm of the unknown, right? Because people don't actually see things in black and white. Right. So when they look at a black and white picture, it immediately flips over into some kind of fantasy. Anyway, yeah, we're just pixels on your screen dancing and making believe that there's actually a human being there when you're actually holding a piece of metal and glass, or in other cases, sitting in front of a computer, or perhaps maybe even sitting on your sofa and watching us on YouTube the way that I consume much of my video. But in reality, it's just a human being sitting looking at an inanimate object that's pretending to be other people. Hi, Lewis Everett.
So everyone's just saying hello to everyone. Welcome all the associate producers.
Indeed, indeed. So, Tracy, that was quite a thumbnail that you put together today. I'm still actually laughing about it. I think that my face may be hurting at the end of the day here.
I know. I better pull it up in case somebody didn't see it. So give me a second to do that. We need one of those intern type people.
Yeah, I mean, we were just kind of riffing on the idea that there's all this chatter on the interwebs about people having buyer's remorse, people who voted for Biden who suddenly find themselves on a list to be unemployed. I guess 50,000 construction workers working on the Keystone Pipeline. We were talking about buyer's remorse, but then on retrospect, it's like, did they actually buy anything? Because I don't think that would be assuming that the election was a valid election and that we don't live in a banana republic. And I'm not willing to go there. I don't think that Rand Paul is either. Have you seen the Rand Paul video?
I'll pretend like I haven't.
Okay.
That makes it more entertaining.
All right, here we go. Let's just run the Rand Paul.
Can't you just say the words, this election was not stolen?
What I would suggest is that if we want greater confidence in our elections, and 75% of Republicans agree with me, is that we do need to look at election integrity, and we do need to see if we can restore confidence in the elections.
Well, 75% of Republicans agree with you because they were fed a big lie by President Trump and his supporters who say the election was stolen. Why can't you say,
well, I think where
President Biden won a legitimate and fair election?
Hey, George, where you make a mistake is that people coming from the liberal side like you immediately say everything's a lie instead of saying there are two sides to everything. Historically, what would happen is if I said that I thought there was fraud, you would interview someone else who said there wasn't. But now you insert yourself in the middle and say the absolute fact is that everything I'm saying is a lie.
Well, because, Senator, I said what the president said was a lie because he said, hold on a second. He said the election was stolen. This election was not stolen. The results were certified in every single state after counts and recounts.
You're saying that absolutely you're saying there was no fraud and it's all been investigated. And that's just not true.
So it's not what I said, sir. I said the Department of Justice found no evidence. Let me finish my point.
You
said something that was not true.
You say we're all liars. You're just simply saying we're all liars. And
I said it was a lie that the election was stolen.
Premise that you're right and we're wrong. Well, let's talk about the specifics of it. In Wisconsin, tens of thousands of absentee votes had only the name on them and no address. Historically, those were thrown out. This time they weren't. They made special accommodations because they said, oh, it's a pandemic, and people forgot what their address was. So they changed the law after the fact. That is wrong. That's unconstitutional. And I plan on spending the next 2 years going around state to state and fixing these problems. And I won't be cowed by liberals in the media who say, there's no evidence here and you're a liar if you talk about election fraud. No, let's have an open debate. It's a free country.
Damn straight.
Yes.
Or Rand straight.
And everybody who thinks he was named after Ayn Rand, his real name is Randall. He was not named after her. Yeah. But
he's got my vote for 2024.
Yeah, I mean, the man has survived being He got shot at the baseball game where Scalise got shot. But was it Stephen Hodgkin? I mean, nobody knows that guy's name, right? The shooter at that game. He's never talked about again.
Right. And then he got beat up on his lawn
by his neighbor, and then he got the COVID.
That's right. They've been going after him.
Yeah. So he's got nothing left to lose. That man is fearless at this point.
Although, to his point, if something doesn't happen as far as election integrity is concerned, it doesn't really matter who you vote for, because if we don't get a handle on how elections are run, then it doesn't matter. The level of gaslighting is insane. Yes, it is insane. But here's the thing: it's the status quo. I mean, I know I talk about this all the time. Just look at Dan Rather talking about the Zapruder film. I mean, he looked in the camera and he lied to everybody who was watching television at the time, which was most people. So this is status quo. This is what they do. They lie all the time. And the big difference now between now and, maybe a year ago or 1963 is that more people are noticing. But there's still a lot of people who don't notice just because they're distracted.
Well, the timeline has gotten shorter between realizing that you've seen a lie and having that revelation. Like, so Rather lied, but nobody knew for years until they showed the actual video.
The Zapruder film didn't come out until 1970, so it was 7 years.
I think it was even later than that, maybe. But yes, so there were 7 years between Dan Rather saying this is what I saw and then it coming out. So who is connecting those two things? Whereas I know some of the things you've experienced with friends of yours that were almost whiplashed into what the hell is going on? It's like, how do you break? What's the pattern interruption for this? And it's something that's so severe as far as a narrative shift that I think people get whiplash, and you got to I imagine their brains like hitting the side of their head and rebooting and being like, what the hell?
Tracy, do you want to explain to people what a pattern interrupt is? Because I think you're 100% correct, but I think that it may get lost on some people.
Well, to me, it's simple as what that phrase sounds like. You're used to seeing something over and over again, so you develop a pattern in your thinking. Oh, this will behave that way. It's always done that. But then something will come in out of nowhere that's totally doesn't fit that pattern. And now all of a sudden you're forced to draw your attention there and be like, wait a minute, that doesn't fit.
Right, exactly. And what's important about a pattern interrupt is at the moment when a person has the pattern interrupt, they are very susceptible to a suggestion. meaning they're open to whatever the next thing is that comes in. Milton Erickson famously used to use a specific pattern interruption, which is that when people would meet him, he would raise his right hand to shake their hand. And as their hand came to meet his right hand, he would take his left hand and grab them by the wrist, which would create this pattern interruption, because the person, when they extend their right hand, is expecting that they're going to have this grasp from the other person's right hand, and when the other hand comes out of nowhere and grabs them by the wrist, it creates this pattern interrupt. So the pattern interrupt for the people that I was first approached by, and it was really when I started to understand that there's as many people on the left that this is affecting as people on the right, was some organic GMO, non-GMO yoga moms that approached me and wanted my opinion. They wanted to know what was going on. And that's why when I see rhetoric like own the libs or libtards or any of those other things, I find that it's counterproductive, because there's as many people on the left who are opening up to this. You were talking earlier about a video with Jimmy Dore. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so if anybody's not familiar, Jimmy Dore, he started as a stand-up comedian. I believe he still does stand-up. But for a while, he was on the Young Turks because he is a lefty. But he's an honest leftist. And I don't think anybody's properly taken Christopher Hitchens' position. And I don't think anybody ever will. But there are a segment of people on the left who I would put into that category of being intellectually honest, but still maintaining leftist ideas. And that would be, even Tim Pool, he keeps moving more to the center, but Tim, Jimmy Dore, Aaron Mate, Michael Tracy, Glenn Greenwald, that crowd. And Jimmy's just brutally honest and funny, and he knows his stuff. So I've been talking about how he's been at war with Cenk Uygur for the last couple of weeks. And then he put out a video this week saying that, the populist left and the populist right, you need to unite. And what it was a video from, I think it was a protest in Michigan. And I guess it was a Boogaloo Boy. And I still don't totally understand what that is. From what I've gathered now, it's a group that almost seems like right anarchists, if we're going to call Antifa left anarchists.
I just think of them as feds, but keep going.
I just think of them as funny. I was like, are they the juggalos of this whole thing? Like, they wear Hawaiian shirts, and they were at, I think there was a protest, an open carry protest in Virginia right before the inauguration. And there I saw photos, and it was Proud Boys, Boogaloo Boys, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and New Black Panther Party. Everybody open carrying and everybody fine. But the Boogaloo Boys wear Hawaiian shirts. So it's almost like, I don't know if it's some Big Lebowski kind of deal. They just seem to be clowning on the whole thing. But this guy who was wearing army fatigue looking jacket, so camo, and then he had, I don't know if it was on his sleeve or he just had the rainbow flag with him, but he grabbed the microphone and just talked about, why are we putting up with these people in office? Like, they spend our money to go kill people overseas, and then they don't even take care of us when they shut the economy down. Stuff both left and right could get behind. We agree on those things. And it was really funny to watch it on Jimmy's show. So he does his show now from his garage with his wife, who's his sidekick on the show. Like, it took me a really long time to even figure out that was his wife, because they don't discuss it. Mm-hmm. And another lefty, and they're watching the clip, and they're like, right on, we agree with everything this guy's saying. And then they tried to parse out what his beliefs were based on his outfit. And you can kind of hear them like, I don't know. He's wearing an army jacket. So does that mean that he's right-wing militia? But wait a minute, is that a gay flag? Like, I don't really know where to put this guy, and I don't really care. These are the kind of coalitions that we need to build if we're going to really get rid of it. Like, they get the idea of the swamp.
Right. And what Jimmy was talking about is that the thing that the establishment fears more than anything else is the left and the right populism coming together. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's where we're at. And again, that's why I'm critical of people on the right who are using terms like own the libs. And
yeah.
I'm not into the red-blue game anymore. I was looking at that Billy Phillips Kabbalah thing that I bought the other day too, and he was talking about how rainbows are supposed to be bad luck to the Kabbalists because they indicate a stratification of the light, which is white light. And when you take white light and you break it up into the colors, it indicates that that you're breaking things up, and that I was watching that and I was thinking about the iconography of the gay flag, and I was thinking, I wonder if that's what they were thinking when they came up with this. It's like the divide and conquer meme, which is the opposite of e pluribus unum.
I don't know that I agree with that assessment of what the rainbow means. But.
I don't either. It's just what I heard in the lesson. So, I mean, I take everything with a grain of salt. And that's probably got some kind of biblical reference, but I like to get a.
I mean, wasn't the rainbow seen right after the flood subsided? So
that's
it has
right.
A positive. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the context of it. Yeah, it was like watch out, or this is going to happen to you again.
That's not like a very. I don't know. There's a better way to do that than here's something that's really pretty to look at.
I don't know. I don't know. This is just what it's just what I saw, and it's a different way of looking at the same thing. So.
Sure. But I like Corky's point is spot on. I don't know if anybody's read any Gore Vidal, but I just made a note to add Gore Vidal books to our book list on the realityos.com. I don't know. Have you read Gore Vidal's books? I'm specifically thinking of one that's, what's it called? Radical Chic and Mau Mauing the Flat Catchers.
I've only really read a few essays by Gore Vidal, but my major understanding of his import is the movie Best of Enemies. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes.
With William F. Buckley, because Gore Vidal, I mean, he practiced critical theory like on live television when live television was being invented, and caused William F. Buckley to basically have a nervous breakdown that seemed to affect him for the rest of his life. And I thought that he was kind of a genius in the way that he pulled that off. But and then I also, you're too young to know this, Tracy, but when I was a kid, there was a show on television called Laugh-In. Mm-hmm. And Lily Tomlin played a character where she was a switchboard operator. And she was constantly getting Gore Vidal on her switchboard, who would be saying untoward things to her. And you never heard what he said. It was always kind of like her with her headphones on, going, "Mr. Vadel, Mr. Vadel."
Well, I would recommend Radical Chic and Mau Mauing the Flat Catchers, because Radical Chic is absolutely hilarious. It's a total satire. And I think he's satiring a real event that he attended. So this is the early 70s when the chic Upper West Side crowd wanted to ingratiate themselves with the Black Panther radicals. So Gore goes to a dinner party, and I can't remember who was throwing it. I want to say it was like Rodgers and Hammerstein. Somebody was throwing this at their house, this lovely dinner party for, I believe it was Fred Hampton and his attorney. And it was a fundraising dinner. And then, so he talks about all the kind of behind the scenes discussions, like, oh crap, what do we do with our normal house help? Because they're Black and we can't have Black people serving Fred Hampton when he comes over for dinner. Like, can we hire Puerto Ricans for the night? Like, we need somebody to serve the meal. And what does one say? You know, how does one behave? So it was very funny. And then Bonfire of the Vanities, I would recommend getting the audiobook version of that. It's fantastic. And you would think it was written last year, because it's the same kind of, you know, social justice warrior fighting. And there seems to be a character that could be an amalgamation of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson that's part of the whole crew. And then all these little side players and the intrigue that goes on across all demographics. And it's really, really funny.
Well, I'll have to do that after I finish my Ian Fleming biography, which I'm almost done with,
Nice.
which is fascinating. I mean, it's interesting because apparently Ian Fleming's grandfather was a banker who financed the 4 American railroads and British Petroleum. But his family was cut off from the inheritance of his grandfather because his grandfather had already ensured that they had, I don't know, 250 million pounds or something, so they didn't need any more money. And he's always, running around doing all of these different journalism jobs when he's not hanging out with his friends at British intelligence and doing things like, flying to Seychelles and opening a bank, and then having arguments with his wife about where they want to live and buying a 40-room mansion. So it's not usually the conversations that you usually have, that you usually overhear of people, who are struggling. They don't like this house, so they go and they buy another one in order to try to fix their marriage.
But Charlie Marlowe's correct. I'm confusing Gore Vidal with Tom Wolfe.
Yes.
So those books were Tom Wolfe books, the Mau Mauing, the Flatcatchers, and Radical Chic, and the Bonfire, the Vanities.
Yeah. Gore Vidal, he was a different person.
He wrote a bunch of biographies, didn't he, Gore?
I don't know, but our chat room will tell us. I could go look it up, but then I would be boring. Let's go look at the Radical Chic. Was Tom Wolfe?
Yeah, I just got caught up while you were chatting.
Jimmy interviewing a Boogaloo Boy. I don't know. I look at Boogaloo Boys. I look at any of those groups that appear to be. Well, I don't know. I'm of the mind at this point that if you want to get ahead, you got to start your own secret society, because populism is inherently flawed in that it can be co-opted and taken down. And if January 6th isn't the best recent example of that, nothing is. You've got a group, 99% of those people were there to support the president and be peaceful and, do their constitutional thing. And then you've got a tiny group of people that are showing up and they're wearing the same color hats and they're doing untoward things. And that winds up just, smearing the entire movement. So,
but see, I think that only really matters going forward if people still give the media any credence. And I think that's eroding really quickly. I mean, it goes back to the shoplifter's remorse. That idea that these people are totally thrown off by Biden doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And those of us that read other media that didn't censor exactly what he said or made it through, like, yeah, I'll ban fracking. And I remember Trump being like, did you really just say that out loud? Can you say that again?
Right.
Because I don't think everybody heard you. But They hid that. So eventually people are going to realize how full of shit the media is. And slowly but surely, somebody in their household will get woke, and then they'll be incessant about it. Like, oh my God, guys. Because now all of a sudden, we can't cure COVID as fast as we thought. It's a real problem. We can't get, I mean, it's amazing. They hit the brick wall of reality, and it's hideous.
Well, I can't wait to see what the news is going to come out of Davos this year.
Everybody, you get to keep nothing.
Is Joe going to Davos?
Joe's going wherever they move his corpse to.
Right. We have to ask Jill. Is Joe going to Davos?
I mean, he's going to travel around in a car like the Pope Mobile. It's just this little bubble that they're going to keep him in the whole time. I remember last week I was talking about one of the constitutional amendments that leads me to believe that he will be president for 2 years and 1 day. And it is the 22nd Amendment. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit, lawyerly sounding, but it basically says nobody can be president that's been president of somebody else's term for more than 2 years. So give Biden until January 22nd of 2023, and then it's bye-bye. No, 2022, I guess. 2023. Yeah, 23.
23. Let's bank on it.
I know they don't have it on Predict It yet. I already looked. Do they have? I'm serious.
I am too. I think it's great.
Biden's last in office.
Yeah,
I'm ready. If they can.
Should we put a pool up on our website? Should we figure out how to do that?
Yeah, we can do that. And I can put up a poll on Locals. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that Locals, the platform is free to be on. So I'd love to get at least 100 people on there, and then we can do a bunch of stuff. It'll open up.
Yeah, because right now the only person who can edit it right now is Tracy, I think.
I'm the only person who can post or edit on there.
Right.
People can respond to posts.
Right. So in order for me to be able to support Tracy in this endeavor, we need 100 people on there.
What about Hunter?
What are you laughing at?
I don't know. He's asking what about Hunter, and I just start laughing because I was thinking about Michael Malice went on Anthony Cumia's show this week to dispense. Michael Malice is working very hard on a book called The White Pill, I believe, which is where I live. And a lot of people, I think, right now are in black pill land.
I like clear pill.
I know you do. Yeah. I like no pill. We'll get to no pills eventually. Like, screw big pharma. Yeah, exactly. I don't need your stinking pills. But they actually put this episode out on YouTube so everybody can watch it, which is great. And Michael does an incredible job of explaining anarchism to Anthony. They started chatting about how funny it would be if Trump live streamed Biden's first State of the Union address and did a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style thing. And Anthony's co-host name is Dave Landau, and he's a stand-up comedian. Dave said, wouldn't it be great if they had Hunter's laptop there as like the little robot stand-in and he could just blurt out stuff during
I am Deimos.
Just some random Chinese lady talking to, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, why hasn't Joe pardoned Hunter yet?
Well, can you pre-pardon?
Yeah, I think that you can.
That would be a little too obvious. I mean, there's so much stuff going on.
Look, he's only going to be president for 2 years. He might as well get it done now. It's like
maybe he has a deal with future President Kamala. Yeah. Yeah, that would be the best Trump comeback. He just keeps his mouth shut until the State of the Union. And then he does a rebuttal live from Mar-a-Lago, which has now been designated in, what did we call that thing in Chaz? An autonomous zone.
Has it been designated an
no,
autonomous
he should.
zone?
I think they should just designate all of West Palm to be an autonomous zone. Because there's a lot of people that live there that are pretty red-pilled.
Yeah, and it has access to the ocean, right?
Yeah, they could blow the bridges.
Right. Well, and they could just run their own economy.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes. I mean,
declare a 12-mile border, 12-mile zone.
Well, look how quickly they could throw up a border wall in D.C. Wasn't that pretty stunning?
It was. I want to know when people are going to start to demand that our troops come back home from D.C.
I'm already demanding it.
You know, I was misgendering. I always think of troops as men because I'm a boomer.
Why are you? We're not using any genders now.
When I was tweeting about it with Pax Dickinson today, and then I realized that I had mispronounced the troops because I assumed that they were dudes, and then I started thinking about what are they doing actually, and then I started to consider how many children are being conceived right now by American troops that have nothing else to do in Washington, D.C. except sleep on the floor. How many war babies are being born 9 months from now? We need to look at, it's January. So October? Would it be like October? September? October?
Yeah. October, November-ish.
Yeah.
So that's our Locals URL. Somebody asked for it in the chat, and I don't know. I think it was on Periscope, but I don't know which Periscope, so I'm just putting it out for everybody to see that.
Right, and if you go to either one of our Twitter feeds, we have link trees, and our link trees have links to everything.
And if you go to therealityest.com, it's all there. You can find us. Can we get the link to Locals offer? I will put that in. I will go over to YouTube right now and put that in there for everybody. So, yes.
So Phil is saying, come from home to home, or is DC just another state of mind? DC is definitely a different state of mind. I got to tell you, whenever I go there, I just feel like I'm in the Death Star. You know, it's not a warm and fuzzy feeling. It's like, oh, I'm so happy I'm here. It's like, this is the city where Seth Rich can walk down the street, get shot in the back.
Right. It's a hideous place.
Yeah. So, have you talked to Pat about the cult of Mithras temple, the Department of Agriculture stuff that we were discussing earlier?
No. I started going through the pictures, though, and looking and seeing what I could find.
All right. So, just to let everybody know that Pat Moyse and Tracy and I are trying to figure out how to present our interpretation of the Department of Agriculture building that I shot many pictures of when I was in D.C., because on its exterior, it appears to be a temple to the cult of Mithras, which is a Roman pagan cult, complete with a Hermes on one side and an Aphrodite on the other, and a hermaphroditic deity in the center. So it's got all kinds of like odd pagan references for what's ostensibly a Christian nation building a giant Roman temple in Washington, D.C. in the 1920s or 1930s. So we'll get there.
I thought you were going to ask about the symbolism around the actual inauguration.
You know what? I missed the inauguration. You want to tell me about it?
I missed it too on purpose. Well, I'm also at work, and I was just like, do I really want to sit during my lunch and watch this farce? Like, no. But I mean, the one image that came out of it, I think that everybody shared, that I saw everywhere, was Lady Gaga looking like, what's that? Elizabeth Banks in the Hunger Games.
With the exact same outfit.
Yeah. And she appropriated Katniss's little Mockingjay pin. And I think it's funny that that's the Mockingjay. I mean, going back to, what's her name? Suzanne Collins, I think is the woman's name, who wrote those books.
Uh-huh.
And I remember reading them and thinking, I wonder what her background is. Air Force. Her dad was an Air Force general.
Yeah. Intelligence?
That was my thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I read those books when they came out because I'm not above reading young adult fiction. I actually think it's pretty good.
My daughter read all of those books like serially, just like she didn't do anything for like a week, and she just read them from cover to cover. And I'll never forget walking into the living room as she like slammed the book shut on the last page, and she goes, "This is the worst thing I've ever read." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Everybody dies."
Like that happens sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I want to think of all of these things as psyops at this point with the predictive programming. So as I'm remembering that, I'm thinking, what was the message there that they were trying to impart? You know, what were they trying to do to us? Or actually, what were they trying to do to our children? Because I don't think very many adults read those things. Although you say that you enjoy
I read young adult. Well, I've read all of it. I think it's interesting to see what's influencing what is so popular with the younger audience, because that tells me in 10 years from now, what are they going to be ripe for? So at that time, you had that series out. You had Twilight, which people were freaking out about, and I read those. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't read Danielle Steele novels, but I imagine that's quite what they're like. But if you got down to just like strip away all the vampire stuff, they were really kind of wholesome, if you can imagine this. The woman that wrote those, Stephanie Meyer, I think her name is, she was Mormon, and you could definitely tell that those ethics were in there. Those ethics and morality were in those books. So it's like, well, this isn't terrible. And then what was the other series? Divergent.
Yeah, my daughter read all of those books also.
Yeah. So see, so now I can talk to her and be like, yes, see, what we're living in is a combination of Divergent, The Hunger Games, and then there was another book called The Circle, which was all about giving up, how wonderful it would be to give up privacy rights. So it follows this young woman who gets a job working for a company akin to, say, a Google.
Didn't Tom Hanks star in a movie about that?
Yes, and I think that Emma Watson maybe played the main character. Mm-hmm. And didn't really get, it was one of the most popular, if not the most popular book of the year. And then the movie just kind of flatlined. And I thought, well, maybe they're killing this on purpose, because it's not a pleasant story once you realize they get everybody to, through peer pressure, give up all of their privacy. I mean, you're live streaming your life 24 hours a day. And the sell is, but if you're not doing anything wrong, then you should just broadcast your life. What's the problem?
Have you noticed how kind of lackluster Twitter is since the exit of the president?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it doesn't tug at you anymore. You know, it used to be several weeks ago, my phone would be talking to me. My phone would be saying, "Pick me up. Check what's going on." And somehow that voice is gone. It's not saying that to me anymore. Yeah, young fiction. My young adult fiction. My daughter still has a dog-eared copy of Ender's Game, though. I think she probably read that book about 5 times. And I so wanted the last month of Trump's election to be Ender's Game, you know, where he's sacrificing everything just to get the buggers the last second. And it doesn't work anymore. You quit Twitter.
But Ender didn't know that he was doing that. He didn't know that it was real. No, I like those. I read the first, I think, 3 books of that series. I want to say that goes up to 50 or something. It's crazy.
Orson Scott Card. I know my daughter spent almost an entire week trying to draw the school, the orbiting school, because she kept reading the descriptions over and over and over again and trying to draw them according to the way that they're drawn. And then there's one sentence in the description where he kind of like ignores physics and makes all of the ideas that he's just presented okay by virtue of the fact that he's ignoring physics. And she was having a real hard time justifying, you know, she was actually physically, you know, drawing and trying to draw it. So because what she was trying to do is do fan fiction. So she thought that in order to be able to describe the locations that she was in, she needed to have a good visualization. She needed to understand what the school was really like. And she couldn't do it. And, you know, I said to her, well, why didn't you just send him an email? I bet you if you asked him an intelligent question like that, he'd probably answer you. And I got a lot of pushback because she thought that there wasn't a good reason why he would answer me. And I said, I bet you he doesn't get intelligent questions like that. I bet you there are not a lot of people who pick his books apart to that level of detail. But, you know, who knows? Who knows?
Yes, but I was trying to find, there was an interesting comment. And we did get a telegram. An infidel apostate has been dutifully filling it up with all sorts of fun stuff. So if you want to find us on Telegram, I think we're at the Reality OS chat over there. There is a link to it on therealityos.com.
Yes, I guess stickers are maybe a generational thing. He's very into stickers. And
I don't know.
Creating sticker packs and doing all kinds of sticker stuff. And it's like, I like IRL stickers. I'm a big IRL sticker guy.
I know you are. But there was another, he said something else in here, I think. I'm trying to find it. Sorry, guys. Here we go. If AOC was afraid to attend the inauguration with 25,000 National Guards, how does she plan on attending any fundraiser anywhere? Well, see, those are safe. And keep in mind, AOC was frightened by a garbage disposal.
Yeah, and was she really frightened or was she just cold? You know,
she's an actress. She won a casting call. Like, there's plenty of evidence about that. I'm not just making that crap up. The Justice Democrats went and ran like an America's Next Top Lawmaker contest. And her brother submitted a videotape of her. And they picked her and ran her.
Yep. And so what do you think about the Bernie meme phenomenon?
I think it's hilarious. I've saved so many of them and I've been parsing them out. But my favorite story, the Federalist did a story about it because the woman, the mittens that Bernie's wearing in that picture, right, where he looks homeless. So my first take when I saw that picture was just like, what a cheap bastard. He doesn't even have a nice cloth mask that he's bought by now. He's just picked up like the throwaway one at the check-in when they went through security or something. Like, come on. My second thought was, why isn't he wearing a hat? Like, nobody was wearing hats. It's cold outside. You have a bald head. Just wear a hat. We all know that you're a disheveled old man and you look like somebody sitting on one of the benches in the subway doing God knows what between trains.
I saw that meme.
Yeah, he's been put everywhere. But so people were into those mittens. I personally thought those mittens were hideous, and maybe she had nicer designs. But so the woman that made the mittens was getting all hit up all over the place. Like, where can I get those mittens? She's like, well, you can't get the mittens anywhere because I went out of business because the taxes were too damn high. But I voted for Bernie in 2016, and I would have happily voted for him again. And so I just thought, this woman is a dunce. What a jackass. And then I thought, again, Bernie Sanders is a cheap bastard because he took this woman's free mittens. So everything that man wears is free. This is why he can afford 4 houses.
Yeah, it's that story was. I mean, you can't make this up. You know, getting back to Shoplifter's Remorse, it's like the stories are so absurd. But you know, as we were in a chat room this week, and somebody was saying, "Oh, don't you think people will be outraged by this?" And I said, "Well, I think it was Scott Adams who was talking about something on Twitter." And that's assuming that the news media covers it. Like, I think that there's lots of things that people who are paying attention are aware of, like that story. But my guess is that if your routine is that you go to work and you get home from work and you flip on CNN for a half an hour before you start drinking, that that you'll never hear that story. Like,
right.
You know, and you're going to get completely blindsided by the pink slip that you get when you get laid off. But, you know, that's the world that we live in.
I think the bubbles are being broken to a certain, I mean, with the union guys, all of a sudden figuring out that, hey, he said he was going to shut down the pipeline? The hell? Their leadership is going to be in for a reckoning.
Right. Well, and my question, I think Mike Cernovich tweeted something out about that when it first came out. My question was, somebody should take a look at the leadership and find out if any of them have bought new houses lately, or if they've got like a new condo in Jamaica or the Bahamas or something, because my guess is that in exchange for that endorsement, there was some recompense, and it may be Bitcoin, it may be real estate, it may be...
Could be a bunch of jobs in the administration or contracts or...
That's right. The leadership may not care because they just got a job at the Department of Housing and Urban Development or something like that.
That's not one that I wanted to show.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. That was a pattern interruption for everybody.
It was for me.
But so this is my little, how I'm trying to burst the bubbles. This is ground news. So I love this. This is what is a blind spot for the left. So you can see this little dial over here that shows you who's covering a story, and then kind of the thermometer of left to right. So this has almost no left coverage. They're counting Yahoo as the one leftist. But look at the picture that they chose. California resident dies several hours after receiving the vaccine, and a smiling Bill Gates.
What about Hank? What about Hank Aaron? Poor Hank Aaron.
No, and there was somebody else that just passed. Oh, Larry King.
Did Larry King get the shot?
I don't know if he had it, but they're saying he had the vid. But there was a story here, and I don't know so this is their blind spot report. So it's divided by what's the right's not seeing and what the left's not seeing. And I'm trying to find the story that was up yesterday. That was the CDC and all the failures and the stupid mistakes that they made. Here we go. Look at this. 0 coverage on the left. None. How the CDC missed chances to spot COVID silent spread. And it's scathing, and it was put out by Reuters. And Reuters is a wire service, which means they put out a story and everybody else echoes it and just writes some original content around it. But it got nowhere. So your friends on the left don't know this. They think this is all Trump's fault, not this massive bureaucracy who can't say, yeah, oh, okay, we can bend the rules. Or that rule's stupid. Maybe we should get rid of it because this is an emergency.
Right. So that was my point, is that if they don't see it, then they don't know it. And they depend upon the media in order to be able to deliver that message to them, and the media, with malice aforethought, doesn't deliver it. So, it would be great if the media just disappeared tomorrow, because people would actually have to go and figure things out. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. Is the psyop to keep us so dumbfounded that we can't get our jaws off the floor? Maybe. I mean, whatever happened to Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn and Lynn Wood? Whatever you think about Lynn Wood, they were certainly making a ton of noise 2 weeks ago, and they're gone. They've disappeared. Like, they're nowhere to be seen. I don't know how to reconcile that. Mittens of mass destruction. Burning Man.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Twitter has been on fire lately. Satoshi coins moved. Yeah, like I said, if you followed whale_alert on Twitter, they tweet out all of the major transactions in the Bitcoin world. And I still contend that is a pig moving through a python. That is, there's a lot of payoffs that are moving through the Bitcoin universe around this last election, presidential election, and that you need to buy a lot of Bitcoin in order to pay people in Bitcoin, and then the people who get paid in Bitcoin wind up selling that Bitcoin in order to cash out. And so I assume that there's going to be some correction in the next 60 to 90 days. And it won't go back down to where it was, but it'll go back down. And because Bitcoin is not a stock, Bitcoin is not you're not investing in anything. It is a bearer instrument that allows one person to pay another person in a quote-unquote off-books anonymous method, which is probably the most transparent and unanonymous thing in the history of unanonymous things.
Anyway, guys, that's the link to get into Locals. I think it gives you a free month or two. I also put it in the description on YouTube, which should be right below us. And while you're there, like the videos, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss it when Peter and I go live. Soon to be joined by Pat, and soon to be changing times and all kinds of things. But we'll
what time were you thinking about changing to, Tracy?
I don't know. Just Sunday evening is rough for me because now I got to get back in work mode, and so it's disruptive. I don't know.
So were you thinking Saturdays?
I don't know.
Supposedly Lynn has a Telegram channel. I think I follow him on Telegram, but again, I'm not. Yeah. Call me a boomer, whatever you want. Yeah, there we go. I'm not so comfortable with Telegram that I really think that I know what's going on. Sydney was in the news yesterday.
Interesting. What was she in the news for?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah. I think a lot of people see, I think if you spend too much time consuming media or thinking about media or talking about what's going on in the news, you're missing reality. Because go out in the world and see how people are behaving.
Yeah, reach out and talk to your neighbors. I mean, one of the great things that happened to me this week is that my neighbor is so freaked out about what's going on with the election. She's one of the few people like me who live in my neighborhood. That we talked about actually having conversations regularly. You've
been an ally in the neighborhood.
Like, well, she lives right there. So it's it would be good if we had conversations regularly instead of sticking to these little screens. So I've been trying to do that. I've been looking at other stuff. Somebody pulled up Jim Marrs. I'm almost finished with Jim Marrs' Illuminati book.
Yeah.
Jim Marrs is super interesting writer. He brings up a lot of different ways of looking at reality. I'm not sure which ones are accurate or which ones aren't, but I like to consume as many of different opinions as I possibly can in order to try to get a sense. I like to have the ground news approach, just read a bunch of different stuff. I think I have a plugin for ground news too, that if you're looking at an embedded website, like I know that I was looking at a Daily Caller story on Twitter, and the ground news icons populate on the bottom. So it actually shows you that little graphic on the bottom in line with Twitter, which is pretty darn good. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Cindy's being sued by Dominion for $1.5 billion. She's smart to be quiet, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's like, does she have even anything approaching $1.5 billion? No. I mean,
no,
it's like, you might as well just sue her for $1 trillion.
That's lawfare.
Yeah. But if she pushes it forward, then she gets discovery.
That's right. So she gets discovery.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, bring it on.
Yeah. You've got to be playing a little brinksmanship in order to beg discovery from somebody who's an ex-federal prosecutor. That's a big ask, I think. So we'll see what happens there. If she has the truth.
Yeah. She'll be okay if she has the truth. But if not, I mean, discovery means she gets to see everything. So if she's been tipped to look for here, look for that, and she'll have her own attorneys. Hopefully she hires attorneys that understand programming.
Yep, hopefully.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think we're in a really weird spot. Like I said, I know a lot of people who are totally black-pilled at the moment. Just everything is awful and we're all going to die and they're going to round us up and put us in camps. And I mean, I've seen the legislation that's been, it hasn't been brought to the floor in the New York State Assembly, but it's there to have,
And which legislation
camps.
Is that?
Well, it's being called, I call it Cuomo's Camp COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But it's having some sort of a detention center where people who are suspected of having this pathogen or some other, illness. I'm refusing to call it a disease. I'm sick of that. When you think of disease, you think of AIDS, right? Or something like this. We never talked about the flu as a disease. This is a coronavirus is in the cold virus family. You wouldn't be like, I need to stay home because I have one of those diseases where you sneeze a lot. I mean, honestly, but it's ramping up the rhetoric, right? It's making everybody scared. Oh, it's a disease. It's a virus, just like the cold or the flu.
So if they pass that law in New York, New York is not an island. I mean, Manhattan is, but I would assume that would mean a lot of people flocking to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. It's like Escape from New York winds up becoming a
real thing.
A real thing, right? Yeah. It seems difficult in a United States scenario where one state could do that without having, massive impact on its neighbors. Mike Lindell is pushing forward after being threatened by Dominion. He's not backing down. Yeah, I know. I think I think it's all very interesting. Mm-hmm. Go buy a pillow.
Yeah.
Go buy a pillow from Mike to show him your support.
I mean, that's where we're going to be. Is we're like, okay, what brands can we buy from, and what aren't total trash?
Yeah, I bought another ham radio, Tracy. But I bought a Japanese one this time because I didn't want to buy Chinese. I didn't want to buy a Chinese one, and the Japanese ones are much more expensive, but they're Japanese. They're not Chinese. So
nice. Yes, it is. It's been the most effective tool they've ever had, this medically induced totalitarianism.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to the fact that in February of 2020, The Invisible Man and War of the Worlds, which are two stories written by H.G. Wells, who wrote a book called The New World Order in 1940, were in theaters or on television. The War of the Worlds was a TV series, and The Invisible Man was a motion picture that came out. And the gist of The Invisible Man is that it's a story about a community that's terrorized by something that they can't see. And War of the Worlds, the end of the War of the Worlds, after humans are literally cowed and dealt with as if they were cattle, they are suddenly saved miraculously by a virus, which kills the Martians. So both of those things were in theaters in 2020. Is that an accident? Don't know. Doesn't seem like it.
I don't think so.
So what other kind of crazy, weird Joe Biden stories have happened this week?
Well, this is my favorite image of the week.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Jacobin. First of all, we need to, one of these days when we're doing longer episodes, we'll have to do one on the French Revolution. But
right.
Why this magazine decided to be associated with the Jacobins is beyond me.
And the Jacobins are the French communists that cut off everybody's heads, right?
Well, I think at a certain point that just the head chopping rotated.
Right. Yeah.
Who was doing it?
Right.
But everybody lost their head.
You've got the drones.
Yes.
In their angelic position, and then you've got the Hillary, Barack, and Bill deities. You've got. Let
me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Go ahead.
You got Dr. Fauci and.
I don't know who that is.
Underneath Fauci?
Yeah.
Is that Como?
I don't know. Maybe.
And then on the right, you've got
Pelosi and Schumer bowing.
Pelosi and Schumer. And then you have a whole layer of blonde media. Actually, on the right, you've got like blonde media angels. And I think there's some trolling going on there because there's some that they obviously have darker color skin than Joe, but they have blonde hair.
Yes.
And they have halos. And then on the left side, the musicians reading they're reading a book.
Yeah, and I can't tell what the title is.
Yeah,
so I don't know if it's supposed to be the college kiddies. And all of them are wearing ties, even the women. And notice they're not wearing masks. They're all, in these higher realms, if you will.
And so maybe that's the entertainment layer. Are those the entertainers on the left? The minstrels?
I don't know. I don't know why everybody's white in heaven except for Obama and that one camera lady. And the Twitter birds, I appreciate that. It's almost the nod to thanks Twitter for winning this election for us. And then down here on the ground, we have the peons. But the children don't have to wear masks. It's very strange.
It's very. Have you read the article that's associated with the cover?
No. No.
It does look like a collector's item though. Might have to run to eBay and buy a copy. Yeah, that looks. I think that's Como. I don't know.
It could be. It almost looks like Comey too, but I don't know who else would fit in that. Who would be working with Fauci? Because it's not Gates.
We'll have to investigate further.
Maybe it says in the article who everybody is. Cover art by. But I mean, the drones is really bizarre. Great. We're bringing back the drone war.
Yeah, we're bringing back, and I was thinking about being on the road to Damascus. Road to Damascus is where I think it was Paul had his great conversion to belief that Jesus was the Christ, and we're back on the road to Damascus now because we sent the Marines in.
I know, which is unbelievable. I told everybody more years. What's up with what do you think Joe's earlobes? I don't see anything all that strange about them. Unless you're talking about in real life and not on this Jacobin cover.
Well,
yeah, the Jacobins went to Scotland as well. But is Peter right that they were the commie force in that whole world? Not that everybody wasn't a totalitarian in the French Revolution. Not because of the Jacobites. Gotcha. Yeah, it does almost look like a church choir. It's just really, really creepy. Yes. See these are Predator drones. They're not airplanes. Just Google search Predator drone.
Yeah, those are the drones that the U.S. military and CIA fly around and spy on people, and then they also have Hellfire missiles, so they occasionally will just shoot a missile out and blow up something.
Yeah. And maybe Twitter is speaking through Joe to all of us.
That's right. Well, look, I think it's obvious at this point that Joe doesn't speak for himself.
Right. I mean, Stephen Hawking did a better job speaking for himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're throwing the drugs in the trash. Didn't Como make some kind of a decision that wound up having millions of doses go bad or something?
That wouldn't surprise me.
After they got delivered, I think that.
Well, it's like when he was screaming about ventilators, and then they found out, oh, they're sitting in a warehouse.
Yeah, and Trump was bragging about having built tens of thousands of ventilators and that they didn't need, and the people who got put on ventilators had a much higher mortality rate. Well, Wells, Huxley, and Orwell are connected to yes. Everybody needs a writer.
Right. And I was going to say, Peter, did you see part 2 of Jay Dyer and Richard Grove? I think it came out maybe yesterday or the day before.
The ones that come out, no, which one was that?
It was just the two of them talking about the elite and their books, and it was a follow-up to their first discussion, which I know is the reason that you're reading that Ian Fleming book.
Yeah, they always lose me after about 2 hours.
It was 2 hours long.
Okay, this was 2 hours long.
Yeah. No, it was a really good discussion. I'll put links to it in the actual videos, and I'll throw them up on the site too. It was a really great discussion about the books, and they got into Wells and Huxley, and they didn't talk about Orwell, but Jay Dyer and Richard Grove are probably the most well-researched, good presenters, I would say.
Yeah, they're better presenters. They're better than most people at presenting. Although Robert, is it Seffer? Is it Robert? He's upped his game lately. He's gotten rid of the intros where he walks around the duck pond in Santa Monica in Sepulveda.
Wait. So he's Robert Seffer. He's on YouTube as Robert Seffer, and his last name is Sephr, right?
Something like that, yeah.
E. And he's an anthropologist, I believe.
He's an anthropologist, and he covers a lot of subjects that are kind of lightning rod subjects. That he's very artistic, though, in the way that he presents information in order to not get booted off of YouTube.
But he's not so quiet on Twitter. I mean, on Twitter, he was encouraging really kind of like, let's go full on like Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun kind of style here.
And he knows a lot about Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun. So, so he used to have these videos where he would start off with ukulele music while he was walking around a duck pond, and like an artificial duck pond, like a concrete beach duck pond. And lately, though, he's been doing machinima. So he's been I don't know if it's the latest version of the Assassin game or whatever it is, but they've got all kinds of modeling of the ancient sites like Athens and places like that are all kind of rendered in these video game technologies in a very detailed way. So instead of walking around the duck pond, he's got these intros that he's obviously like lifted from some video game,
wow.
Which is a lot easier to watch than the duck pond and the ukulele music. So
yes,
but I'm rambling on about presentation, and I still think that all of this stuff, the Richard Grove stuff, the Jay Dyer stuff, it needs to get packaged. It really needs people like you and me with budgets to actually go in and figure out a way to tell those stories in a way that more people will consume. Because it turns out that it requires a lot of intellectual diligence, and a lot of people, they're distracted. They don't have the time to do it. So we need to figure out a way to put training wheels on a lot of this information, I think. Which is what good media production is. It's like you take a good idea and then you make it so easy for somebody to consume that they're jumping up in their seat when the Death Star blows up at the end. And
well, we've moved into the Empire Strikes Back, right? That's where we are in the stage of Star Wars.
I hope. Well, yeah, and you have to start to kind of like look at all of this stuff and think, okay, so are we really battling the Sith here? Is that what's really going on?
Yeah. Because
that seems to be what's really going on, which makes me think, well, did George Lucas really write that screenplay, or did Joseph Campbell write that screenplay? Was Star Wars a direct result of changing images of man? Was George... Joseph Campbell hanging out with Margaret Mead, drinking whiskey and going, we need a space cowboy movie.
Yeah, we need a myth of our time because we didn't have one. I mean, there's quite the debate about whether King Arthur's legends are real or made up, but they gave England a mythos. And they still cling to that. I mean, there's stories about John Dee, like revitalizing that mythology to encourage Elizabeth. Like, this is your pedigree. This is where you came from. And it's, okay, so we didn't have that, and now we do. But I look at it and I think, yep, we're an empire. And so the Jedi are going to make a comeback. There were 3 years between those sequels originally, so we've got to wait an extra year. But what's the Rebel Alliance?
Right.
And I know Rebel is so tainted in our language. God forbid we talk about the rebels.
And how do you actually become a Jedi?
Well, it's about meditation and discipline and focus. And we got to go meet a little Yoda type person or multiple Yodas. I think everybody's going to go off and find their Yoda. But then you're going to build bridges.
Find your Yoda.
Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about, rebel is tainted. We've talked about this. Like, you can't really use that phrase because everybody associates it with the South and the War of Northern Aggression, as they like to call it.
What do you think about the rumor that Trump is going to start a third party called the Patriot Party? When I heard that, the first thing I thought is that is the worst branding ever. It's we're really in an existential place right now as far as America is concerned and Americanism is concerned, meaning that we support whatever that thing is that we pretend governs us, the Constitution, and that we're at a point right now where it's not left and right, it's not Republicans and Democrats, it's not red and blue, it's Americans versus globalists and organized crime, and there is probably no difference between the two, and so if you're going to start a third party, I would say that you need to call it the American Party, because anybody who's criticizing you is going to be criticizing Americans.
Right. But a third party is a waste of time.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, look at the Libertarian Party was started in 1972, I believe. And it took them all the way until 2016 and then 2020 to get ballot access at the federal level in every state. Because these parties hate each other, the Democrats and Republicans on paper, but they will fight like hell to keep any third party off of the ballot. Like, look at how hard Kanye had to fight. He couldn't get on the ballot even in my state. They will come together and block your access. They will scrutinize every single signature, unlike they did it with the election. With ballots, no, that's fine. We don't need any signature matching. But you fill out a petition, and I can't remember what the threshold is for a third-party candidate. I want to say it's either 10,000 or 100,000. But if you're a major party candidate, you need 1,000 to get on the ballot. It's all about ballot access if you want to play this game. So I heard a rumor today, and I was trying to verify it before you and I went live, that Dave Smith, who's a comedian, he's on 2 different podcasts. One is libertarian-centric. The other one is a comedy podcast. And he was a frequent guest on, I don't know if he ever made contributor level, but he was a guest on Fox and Fox Business quite a bit, and then went over to, I guess it was CNN when S.E. Cupp got a show and was a contributor on there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he was great. He had some really good back and forth with her about the Syrian war, and she was all like, we got to bomb them. And he's just like, why? I don't understand. Well, Assad gassed his people. And he's like, says who? the people that we later found out were completely lying. And so the rumor is that he and another guy.
Did George Stephanopoulos tell you that?
Yes. Yes. Did Hillary Clinton's campaign tell you that she had pneumonia? That he and Maj Touré, Maj is a local Philly guy that runs the nonprofit I don't know if it's even a nonprofit. He runs Black Guns Matter, where he goes to inner cities all over the country and teaches people.
Oh, he was in Arizona, I think.
Yeah. He goes all over the place, and people have tried to screw him too. There was a guy that was bird dogging on purpose, wearing his shirts at 2 different events.
Yeah, I think that's terrible branding, by the way.
I know, but he's trying to be in your face.
I know. I get it.
It gets attention. I get it. He ran for city council in Philadelphia and lost, but he's a solid dude and he knows his stuff. So the deal that I heard was the two of them are banding together to run as the Libertarian ticket in 2024. So there's stuff going on, but Biden hasn't even been president for a week.
Somebody was talking about John Dee being Shakespeare.
Right.
And I would refer you to Alan Green. Bardcast, I think, is his channel. And he's got some very well-formed opinions about Shakespeare. And I think that
Shakespeare?
He thinks that Shakespeare was a guy named Edward de Vere, and which makes him there's Stratfordians, and there's 2 different schools of Shakespeare thought. And he thinks it's a guy named Edward de Vere, and that he definitely worked with John Dee and Francis Bacon on that project, that it was a program. Tracy was noting the other before we started the show today that I constantly think of everything as a program at this point, and I'm guilty. I'm at a point right now where I think it.
But I read a book recently, I think it was called Rosicrucian America, and a lot of it was talking about how Sir Isaac Newton was actually part of what you're discussing, that whole program, if you will, that was used Shakespeare's name to vent their own frustrations, because they kind of made a persuasive case that there's no way that William Shakespeare, who was basically a pauper and maybe even possibly illiterate, had the knowledge that was used to craft those stories. Like, he wouldn't have been in Venice, Italy. There's no record of him ever traveling anywhere like that. So how does he know these things that are in those plays and some other stuff? And a lot of it seemed to be court intrigue things. And so the story in this book was that I think, is it Newton? Am I right about that? It was Newton at the time? And
Yes.
And Bacon. I can't remember I think it was Bacon that they were talking about, that was thought to have been Shakespeare, or one of the people that wrote under that name, but that there were several of them probably using that moniker.
Right. One of the things that I read in the last couple of days, and I can't remember what the number was, so all of those people out there who are numerically specific, forgive me, that Francis Bacon actually edited the King James version of the Bible, because there is a bunch of cryptographic stuff in there, and the one passage that they were giving was there's one passage in the Bible where shake and the number associated with it as a key to a cipher is, I think, 46, or I could be wrong, because the 46th word is shake from the beginning of the passage, and then the 46th word from the end of the passage is spear. So Shakespeare. So and I may have the number wrong, and I do have it bookmarked in my Bible app, and I could go look it up.
But it was Bacon. And I think I would recommend that book. I thought it was really interesting. I threw it up on
the King James version of the Bible?
No.
Okay.
No. Rosicrucian America.
Okay.
So, and I wanted to get back to some of these things, because yes, there is a lot of shakeups. Yep, I was talking about Dave, and I started watching Dave had Hotep Jesus on yesterday to try to recruit the Hoteps into the libertarian world, which I think is probably a solid move, just because they're good at getting messages out, which has been the problem of the libertarian world.
Is there a point? That's a good question. And you know what the best part about that question is? You're asking it. because the more people that ask that question, then the closer that we'll probably get to actually doing something about it. But as long as people are lazy and they assume that everything is going to be status quo, I mean, I think that the first big thing is probably going to be getting rid of Gavin Newsom. Like, who do you want to get rid of him with? But the one thing that George Soros started doing like 10 years ago, and we're living with it now, is that he started funding campaigns for secretaries of state. Because secretaries of state control the voting process in every state. So if you control all the secretaries of state, you basically control all the voting counting processes. So we need to really kind of lean heavily on secretaries of state at this point. But if they control the process by which they get replaced, they're not going to get replaced, which is kind of like driving your car with a flat tire to the mechanic to get the tire fixed. I'm not sure it's going to work that way. Professor Hamamoto is looking at John D. at the moment. Yeah. Check out Alan Green. Alan Green's got a book. He's got two books. He's got one book. He keeps talking about the second book. I don't think it's out yet. I've got that book called Shakespeare Decoded, D-E-E, coded. He's got lots of videos. If you go to my personal Peter Duke YouTube channel, I've got a playlist, a public playlist that's called Alan Green, The Genius of Alan Green and Robert Grant, which has a bunch of their videos about their discoveries and the things that they figured out. Grant did a video yesterday and the day before where he basically rehashes all of the stuff that he's been talking about for the last couple of years, but he does it in a much more organized presentation. Usually what he does with those videos is that they are for people who subscribe to him. And then a couple of days later, he'll send out an email that will have a link to the video for people who weren't subscribers to go catch up. When that comes out, I'll try to post it up. I think a lot of people would be very interested in what he's doing, because I think that he's very close to solving a lot of the issues that Albert Einstein was working on as far as unified field theory, having a complete theory of the universe that goes from the quantum level all the way out to, infinity, out to the stars. And I think he's very close. And if he does that, then there's a lot of things in the world that might change. He also continues to claim that he's broken public key encryption and that he has a geometric solution that allows public encryption keys that are based on prime numbers to be cracked, which the first thing people ask is, does that affect Bitcoin? It doesn't affect Bitcoin. It affects Bitcoin wallets. And based on his research, about 25% of Bitcoin wallets that are out there in the universe are probably at risk because they are secured with public key encryption. So we'll find out. It's up for peer review, but links to all of his papers are on his website, robertedwardgrant.com, because he realized that publishing all of this stuff and putting it all in one place is probably the best way to protect himself. He claims that he showed his encryption discoveries to 4 guys who used to work at the NSA, and that they started laughing when they were reading it, and they joked that they thought that there's a good possibility that this was a backdoor that was planned for public key encryption from its inception, and that somebody probably just killed the mathematician that came up with it once it was completed.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. So. I'm just reporting what he said.
No, I know. I get you. But that sounds like something you'd be like, oh, yep, of course. But here was something that I learned from the Jay Dyer, or something that I'm willing to entertain as interesting. And I have to go back and see if they cited a book. But Jay Dyer and Richard Grove were talking about different psychological operations and how they being the elites or the cabal, whatever we want to call them, have used religion at times for these things. And they pointed to the Fatima events and then also Medjugorje. And I know a bit about Medjugorje, which I believe
I know what Fatima is. What is Medjugorje?
Medjugorje is a town. I'm trying to remember how to spell it because I think it's either in. It's in Bosnia.
It's an interesting name for a town that you were going to use for some kind of religious.
Yes.
I assume it's a miracle, right?
It is. It's a bunch of children, and I'm trying to pull it up here, but I can never remember how to spell the damn thing. Because if you can imagine, that's not phonetic.
Well, I can catch people. Fatima was, there was some people, including some children, who claimed that they saw the Virgin Mary. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then somehow that's been sanctified. Or,
yes.
Yeah, as a legitimate miracle.
And so that was in, let's see, the Our Lady of Fatima. It says that it happened starting in 1917. And let me see if that one is approved. I'm on Wikipedia, so take that for what you will. But I'm not seeing this Medjugorje. Medjugorje, there was a group of children that started seeing, here we go, Our Lady of Medjugorje. It started in 1981. And so Medjugorje, does it tell me where it is? It's in Bosnia. So at the time, I think that was still part of Yugoslavia. In 1981. So the Russians were still heavily there. So what happened was they're saying 6 Herzegovinian teenagers in Medjugorje.
Say that 5 times fast.
Herzegovinian. It's easier to say than Medjugorje. And for those who wanted to know how to spell Medjugorje, it's Orje. So they started seeing Mary, and she was telling them all this stuff, and it started rippling throughout the town, and everybody's believing these kids, and they still say that they see her to this day. And you can go on YouTube and watch videos of them. They're standing at the front of a church at the kneeler where you go and get communion.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them drop simultaneously and like look up as if something has just appeared, and then they start praying under their breath. And so when this was going on, it started causing all these people to maybe believe in this stuff. So that they sent in some Ruskies to interrogate these kids, and the guys that went in and interrogated them came away thinking, holy crap, they're really seeing her. But I never really dug all that deeply into it. I have a bunch of friends that have actually been there because they believe in this miracle. These are Catholics. And so this is an approved miracle as far as they're concerned. And they've been to the town, and there's some really cool, interesting history of the town. It was getting bombed during World War II, but none of the munitions detonated. So there's all these unspent bombs just sitting around. People have them as flower pots, like the exteriors of them. It was just like nothing happened. No bombs went off here. It's just a miracle in Medjugorje. And the sun has changed colors and like all kinds of crap there. But what Jay was saying is, if you listen to what Mary supposedly told these kids, it was the commies are bad. And he goes, if you really step back and kind of think about it, if this was divine intervention, you think they would say, hey, guess what? Anthony Sutton was right. The communists in Russia were funded by American bankers. Don't trust the bankers. You know?
So you think that maybe Alan Dulles had something to do with this miracle?
Why not, right? How do you get people to believe? And you already had the with communism, there was that rubbing up against, like they're trying to stamp out Christianity so you can get them.
Well, and the Vatican was intimately involved with running drugs to the United States of America at that time. So, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And they were talking about Gladio quite a bit, and some of the other mob ties to intelligence agencies, and how they've always kind of been working hand in hand. And
Angleton worked a lot in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Italy before he was officially part of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Well, when the Central Intelligence Agency started, they didn't have much of a budget, so you got to go send people out to raise some funds. So why not go straight to the Vatican?
Well, that was the whole purpose of the part of the Gladio drug running program, was to fund all the black ops, because they didn't have a budget.
But that was remaking, as far as I can tell, that's what the British East India Company was always all about. They weren't about tea. That's right. There was a massive worldwide drug trade.
Right. And the United Fruit Company.
Oh, yeah, that was drugs too?
Yeah, that's a Central Intelligence Agency version in South America.
Lovely. This is why we have a drug war, guys.
Right.
You can't have legalized drugs because then how else would they raise money for the black ops?
Right. And that's what I didn't understand. Again, kind of refactoring my my fandom for Donald Trump is that if you knew that the majority of drugs that were coming over the border were states sanctioned, you wouldn't actually need to build a wall. All you'd have to do is shut down the state programs that were importing all of the drugs. Right?
Yeah. If you want to stop drugs, you can do it tomorrow. Do you know what's been really fascinating is that we've had no travel this entire time, right? All travel has been shut down all over the world. Do you think people are having trouble getting drugs?
No, obviously.
Yeah. So how are they getting in? It's weird, huh?
Like I said, so you want to you want to turn Miami Beach into Palm? Which city is
West
it?
Palm.
West Palm into an
autonomous zone. We can live at the Breakers Hotel. It's beautiful.
Will we legalize drugs? Will we just pull all of the drugs in through the United States and we'll just sell them like at a fireworks stand on the border?
Yes. Everything's legal. You can have all your little surgeries that you want to. You can have your right to try drugs. Anything goes here. You can get human growth hormone without having to go black market. You can get stem cells injected into it. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody else.
I did always like William F. Buckley's proposal for kind of a libertarian solution to drugs, which is that he thought that all drugs should be legal to all adults. With the one caveat that if you're an adult and you sell drugs to somebody who's a minor, that you get the death penalty. And it's summary. It's like
immediate execution.
Immediate execution.
Yeah. Yeah. I could agree with that.
East India.
Yep. And she's saying drugs stopped for a while in France. Gangs are being replaced by other gangs. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, that happens. I mean, you had the Italian. I think that when the Coppola movies came out, that was kind of the nadir of the Italian influence in the Northeast because they were being quickly replaced by the Russians.
Yeah.
And so it was okay to tell the story. It was okay to basically throw the Italians under the bus as long as you didn't mention their involvement with the Vatican, the CIA, and the Masons, which was the purpose of all of those movies. And then it was okay to throw the Italians under the bus because they were being replaced by Russians. So there was a complete lack of agreement.
I was just saying that there was no pot; it was only hash. But Europe's always been big on hash, right? That was always easier to get. But see, you're still getting hash, which it's like they can't keep drugs out of prisons. Why do we even bother trying? Holland tried, but the locals have recently got drugs banned. Is that harder drugs? I'm guessing.
I don't know. I'd like to know the answer to that question.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think we're going to end up living in one of Stevenson's worlds.
Yeah. Well,
whether it's Diamond Age or it's Snow Crash.
Well, you were a big Snow Crash anarcho-capitalist fan. Is that is that where you got turned on to anarcho-capitalism?
No. I got turned on to anarcho-capitalism thanks to Murray Rothbard, and I can't remember who told me to go read his stuff, but it was way before I read Snow Crash.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, okay, I understand how this world is set up, these dynamics. But I mean, if you look at it, I was thinking, Peter, you could answer this question for me with reconfiguring of the internet. Now, a .com, it's just a protocol, right?
Yeah, the DNS system basically just attaches an alphanumeric name to a number. That's all it does.
So could you invert everything so it would be .www?
You could invert it. There may already be a .www. I'm not sure. You can make it whatever you want. I mean,
I just thought that would be funny. Make www mean Wild Wild West again.
Well, it's interesting, because there's some occult significance to www. It may be the inversion of MMM, and I don't remember what that means, but to certain occult practices, it's got significance, which I always thought was weird, because the World Wide Web came out of CERN, which is in Switzerland. And CERN does all of this kind of like weird occult things. And we talked about CERN before with the CERN tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
But
which I'm like, I wish I brought them in here because I did get a deck.
Yeah. I have the images, but we did that before, right? Where we put them up on the screen. I mean, basically what happens when you go to your browser and you type in the name of something is that, Google, if you're typing it into Chrome, the first thing that happens is that Chrome goes to Google and says, hey, are you looking for this? And then it puts up a recommendation. But in the old days, what happened was that when you typed an address in, then it would go to the domain name system and it would look up that name, and then it would tell your browser what the IP address was of the website that you were going to. And then this is all invisible and happens in the background. And then your browser would just go find that server on the internet. So there isn't anything, and that's just called a lookup. There isn't anything that prevents anything that you type in the address bar on a browser from going anywhere that you want it to, except for the protocols and the agreements of the people who've set up that system. And that system runs on a piece of software called Bind, B-I-N-D. I don't remember what Bind, I think Bind is an acronym, but I don't remember what it is. And it's open source. You could write your own version of Bind. You could write your own servers. You could create your own lookup tables. You could basically create your own internet if you wanted to that had nothing to do with the current internet, and it could run on top of the same infrastructure. But people would need to have a different browser, or they would need to point their browser in a different DNS server. And then you could create whatever you wanted to. There's nothing that prevents anyone from doing that except that you need to get buy-in from a bunch of people. And that's what standards are all about. So
that was the way to say yes, you could do a .www.
Yeah. If it's not already a TLD, a third level domain name. TLD. Yeah, it would that might confuse the search engines. I'll go do some research. I'll find out.
I just think it would be funny.
I mean, I had a friend who was on the ICANN advisory board. He passed away. And,
what's ICANN?
ICANN is the global organization that manages for the public, the global public, the domain name system. ICANN, I think. www is a separate layer from the underlying IP protocol.
Okay.
Yeah, World Wide Web. Yeah, he's got it. Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Yeah, so you get a name, you get a number. It's kind of like license plates and cars, putting license plates, and your car has a VIN number, but then it's got a license plate on it too.
Corky, sometimes I don't know everything, and I also don't assume that everybody else knows everything. So when Peter drops something like that, I say, okay, what is that? Explain it to me like I'm 5.
That's right. And I do the same thing to Tracy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Rarely, but yes, he does.
Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, what else? Do we have any other questions?
We'll take questions, but I also wanted to laugh about Antifa still destroying the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, let's talk about that.
I find it so entertaining that they're out there chanting F. Joe Biden as they destroy the Democrat Party headquarters in Portland. And I think it was on the eve of the inauguration, or on inauguration night. I don't know if there were any balls or anything. I have no clue.
So my question now, whenever I see that stuff, because I watched this movie with Catherine Austin Fitz. Mm-hmm. Did we talk about that before?
No.
So Catherine Austin Fitz is a woman who used to work for the federal government. She was the deputy secretary, I think, of finance for housing housing and urban development. And she got in there and realized what a racket it was, and she got out, and she's appears regularly, like on Dark Journalist, and somebody made a movie about her. If you Google Catherine Austin Fitz, I want to say The Great Reset. I can't remember what.
You'll find it and send it to me, and then I'll stick it on the website. We have a section under research called documentaries. I'll throw it up there.
Right. So she was doing an analysis of the places where there were riots last summer, and she didn't have a good reason for it, but intuitively she was looking at the data and she thought, I wonder if there are banks or branches of the Federal Reserve in those cities. And what she found out was that in 34 of the 37 cities where there are branches of the Federal Reserve, there were riots. And then she went to go see if there were what they call economic opportunity zones in those cities. And what she found out is that Planet Lockdown, that's the name of it. Great.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Planet Lockdown. Everybody go watch Planet Lockdown. It's very good. And she's very easy to listen to. She does she calls the cabal that runs the world Mr. Global.
Isn't that from Mr. Robot? Was that called Globo Corp or something?
No. That was called Evil Corp.
Evil Corp.
Evil Corp. Yeah.
Yes.
Planet Lockdown. And so what she did is she figured out is that there's a direct correlation between the places where businesses are being burned out right now and these economic opportunity zones. And it's all happening at the same time that apparently Congress has passed some law that allows Silicon Valley billionaires like Bezos to pull $10 billion out, sell his stock for $10 billion. And if he immediately turns around and invests it in an opportunity zone, he pays zero capital gains tax. So they're depressing the price of the real estate by burning out all of the small businesses. And then they're getting a tax advantage on top of a deal.
Well, and I thought that Berkshire Hathaway was involved in all this too. Wasn't she saying that they were?
That wouldn't be a big surprise.
I thought she said that they were the major holder of all of the insurance for those buildings. They were the biggest insurer in those areas that were being targeted. So she's like, well, it's really hard. If anybody watched The Wire, which was a great show. Did you ever watch that show, Peter? It was an HBO show.
No, it's on television. Unfortunately,
I know, but you really should watch it. It's absolutely incredible. It all takes place in Baltimore, and David Simon was the creator of it. And so the way I kind of like to explain it is that you're following cops, right? In the first season, they're trying to get a wiretap, right? So it's like that's the pebble that dropped into the pond, is trying to get a wiretap up on this payphone that's right outside of a project in Baltimore so they can bust these drug dealers. And then the second season, you kind of move out to the first ripple. So you're dealing with the docks where the drugs are coming in. And so the same drug dealers are still involved and all that. And then you move out another layer. And I think it's season 3, they start moving into the schools and the mayor's
Are they moving
race.
out a layer, or are they just moving up the pyramid?
No, because everybody stays in it. You could be moving up the pyramid. Yeah. And then, what was that guy's name? He ran in 2016 and got smoked. Martin O'Malley. He's a character on that show. They don't call him that, but he was the mayor of Baltimore. So they have him as the mayor of Baltimore. And then they have the most quintessential, perfect piece of shit politician named Clay Davis, I think was his character's name. And he's like the local rep for Baltimore. And he's making deals with the drug dealers. Like, buy this waterfront property over here for $5,000 because next session, we're going to totally make that an opportunity zone. Your money's going to go through the roof. And it was like helping them launder drug money and all this. The 4th season, you get into the public schools because one of the cops is just like, I'm done being a cop. I'm going to go teach. So he ends up teaching all the kids that are working for the drug dealers. And it's just complete nightmare. And then the 5th season
sounds like real life.
It's really real. And you just expand the character base. So all those stories are still going on the further out you zoom. And the final season is at the Baltimore Sun. So you get to see all those different things and how those worlds collide to create the reality that we all live in.
Yeah, as you're describing that, though, I'm just thinking about production, and I'm thinking about how much effort you know how much effort it takes to make a television season. And it's like, how are the decisions made where we decide, okay, well, this is the storyline and this is how we're going to do this. And this is how we're going to put this thing out into the world. And, oh yeah, we're going to make money doing it at the same time and create all of these movie stars and, all of the other stuff that goes along with a successful show. But that's the show I want to see. I want to see the meeting, at the Ivy on Robertson, where the showrunner is pitching the studio on putting this show together and what the agenda is and how they decide that they're going to greenlight that project. That's actually more interesting to me than the show itself. I should figure out how to get my next door neighbor to invite me to one of those meetings. I live next door to a showrunner.
There you go.
Over there.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool scam.
Which scam? The Catherine
All of
Austin?
the scams. The Catherine Austin Fitz scam.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I just love it that it was on TV. Like, here's the scam that they run. But now, instead of having to move people and play this whole, what are we going to do about gentrification game, they just burn out all these neighborhoods.
Right. And what Catherine Austin Fitz said is that it fits their smart cities program, because if they own all of the real estate for, several miles, it reminds me when I was working at USC, they had this, maybe it's when I went to USC. There was a program that they had called Towards Century 2. It had to be when I was going to school there. I went for one semester. And there was a program that they had in place because USC is kind of like a wealthy school that's in a really terrible part of Los Angeles. And they had this program that was called Towards Century 2, where they wanted to buy all of the real estate within a mile of Tommy Trojan. That was the program. So USC basically wanted to own a big circle, in Los Angeles, so that they can improve the area and basically build it up. But it was particularly distressed real estate. It wasn't, great real estate.
But this is the best way to create distressed real estate.
Right.
Let's just legitimately distress it. But back to Antifa still on the rage in the Pacific Northwest. I heard Tim Pool was talking about it on one of his episodes this week, and he had picked it up from somewhere else. So I can't credit the original source of this thought, but I thought that was very, very clever. And what he was saying is this has backfired on the left, just like every other kind of terrorist army that they fund. He's like, this is the American version of, say, ISIS, where
George Webb has been saying that for 5 years.
Right. But now it's turned on them and they need to put them down. So it's Biden's National Guard now out there tear gassing them and rounding them up, because it happened on Wednesday night. So Biden was officially the president. Yay, we ended fascism. Wait, why are the anti-fascists now tear gassing the anti-fascist protesters in the street? This is the kind of whiplash stuff that I'm hoping my friends that live in Portland see. They're like, wait a minute.
Well, it's not just happening to those people either. It's like every time something like this happens, I have this, Barrett Brown says many disparaging things about police that my gut tells me not to agree with. But then when I see them doing stuff like this, I'm thinking, is he right? I have friends who are policemen who are not bad guys.
Right. But they are order followers.
Yeah. So
and that becomes the problem. Like Michael Tracy was walking around DC talking to some of the National Guard guys that were there. And he's like, why are you guys here standing on corners? And he said, with unloaded rifles. And they're like, no, somebody told us to do it.
That's right.
I mean, at what point do you just totally cede your own volition and just be like, oh, okay, we're supposed to just go stand there? For what reason? I don't know. Why are we sleeping in a parking garage? I mean, I don't know if that's, did you dig into that story where it's supposedly 5,000 of them or whatever are sleeping in a parking garage, the National Guard with one toilet?
I saw it reported a bunch. I saw a bunch of pictures of it. I saw a bunch of policemen sitting in the lobby of the Trump Hotel. I did see lots of pictures of soldiers marching around with unloaded AR-15s, or maybe they're M1s. I don't know what they are. But they and maybe they've got ammo in their backpacks because they all have backpacks on, and so maybe they were just told to keep them unloaded. But marching with an unloaded AR-15, I guess, is good training. I mean, it's good PT, I suppose. But I don't get it. I don't understand why they're there. And,
well, it's like we were promised a police state, so they just made one. Like all the terror that they thought Trump was bringing in, they brought with them on day one.
Well, but yeah, they're going to become what they've accused him of being.
Well, they always were.
Yeah.
Now it's just out in the open for everybody. So I think there are going to be a hell of a lot more people waking up, and we shouldn't be calling them libtards or try to own them. I mean, we can laugh, of course.
We have to stop doing that.
Yes. They're not going to talk to you. Now that they've woken up, if you've been sane and saying stuff that to them sounded crazy over the last 4 years, maybe they're going to rethink that.
Yes, Phil, we were never in the military. We were never in the military. We never went through basic, which at this point I'm thinking is it's just state-sanctioned initiation mind control. Mm-hmm. And it's a requirement. It's necessary for military discipline. Sure. But
right. And he's saying authority and orientation. They're told what to do and when to do it. No, I totally get the whole idea. It's a pretty simple concept. What I'm saying is you need some of them to question it. Why, if it's true that a bunch of them had to sleep in a parking garage, why didn't one of them say, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to sleep on a concrete floor with one toilet to split between 5,000 of us or however many. This is inhumane and absurd.
Right. Well, that's the story of that Jake Angeli guy, right? Who was, I went and I read his bio. He actually was in the Navy, and he got discharged because apparently he wouldn't take an anthrax vaccination.
Right. And I got a little bit of an update from Jason Rink on the status of that.
Yeah,
I feel like they're still in talks with international distribution networks, but it seems like nobody in the States really wants to touch it.
Right. He did a video about that. I think it was yesterday.
Yes.
Where he was talking about how every phone call that he made got a really positive meeting. People were ready to do the deal, and then the higher ups would come stand on their necks and tell them not to do it.
Yeah. So the media has cast this in a totally different light, and the higher ups at any domestic outlet have swallowed that hook, line, and sinker. This is the next 9/11.
Right. So this brings us back to like the, to me, the Adam Curtis scenario where you've got a guy who's won 6 BAFTA awards. He's the BAFTA award is basically the equivalent of the Academy Awards, and none of his films are available in the United States on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Netflix, any of those things. They're not available. You have to go to thoughtmaybe.com where you can watch them.
And I put hypernormalization up on our site under the documentaries because I think that's where we are. And you do a better job of explaining hypernormalization than I do. So if you want to give everybody a word that they can use to explain it to people that just got whiplash woken.
Yeah, hypernormalization is it was a word that was coined by a Russian psychiatrist. And basically what it means is that you've got an entire population that's normalized to the idea that the media and politicians are all lying to them all the time. So that they have zero trust in the media. They have zero trust in politicians. And basically they go along to get along until something happens that changes their ability to survive. Like they run, and it's not an accident that the fall of the Soviet Union was presaged by running out of toilet paper. Like that's actually what happened in the Soviet Union in the 90s when the wall came down. Was that the grocery stores stopped? How do we get to hypernormalization? We are there.
Yeah, are you talking about the film or getting to that state? Because we are at that state.
If you want to go watch the movie, I have
it up on. Go ahead, Peter.
there's a website that Tracy turned me on to. You can find bad versions of it on YouTube and stuff.
I embedded it. It's on Vimeo, and I embedded it on our site.
Yeah. So there's a website called thoughtmaybe.com. And if you go to the Adam Curtis section of that website, you can watch Now, his movies are usually 3 hours long because when they're shown on the BBC, they're shown 3 nights in a row and they're an hour long. So the versions that you see are all edited together, and people will look at it and go, oh, gee whiz, I don't know if I want to watch a 3-hour movie. Well, you don't have to. Just you can watch the first hour, and then you can watch the second hour, and then you can watch the third hour, because that's really the way it's put together.
But hypernormalization runs together as one. It wasn't done as a series.
Okay. I watched, and that movie came out in, the thing to keep in mind when you watch Hypernormalization is that it came out in October of 2016. So a full month before Donald Trump was elected, and it basically predicts that Donald Trump is going to be elected president in that movie. Which again, I'd love to know what Jay Dyer would think about the timing of that. But there are other movies. There's a really, really good movie that's I think is as good as Hypernormalization. That's called The Power of Nightmares, which is about Leo Strauss and the Straussian impact on neocons and the presentation of information. The "you're either with us or against us" trope. And then there's a 4-part series. I think they're 48 minutes. They might be an hour. That's on advertising. That's called, what's the one? It's on
Century of Self?
The Century of the Self, right. And it's a 4-part series about Edward Bernays. And if you know about Edward Bernays and you want to know a lot more about Edward Bernays, or if you don't know who Edward Bernays is and why he's such an important and seminal figure in understanding the media, that is a really, really great and powerful series.
All of his, because there's another one, I believe, that's called All Watched Over by Loving Machines. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. And Curtis's documentaries are different than any other documentaries that I've ever seen, stylistically. He does an incredible job. I don't know who he has pulling archival footage, but they're a genius.
Well, I think that it said on the Hypernormalization Wikipedia page, it says that the production budget on that movie was $60,000 or 60,000 pounds or something. It's like, was he sitting in his office by himself with Final Cut for a year? Is that
maybe he was
going downstairs to the basement and pulling tapes?
He could have been, but I mean, the story that he weaves in Hypernormalization is incredible, and especially now looking back on the Trump administration and what's gone on with Syria, because that was a big point in that film. It was Kissinger went over there, gave Assad's father all these assurances because he was trying to start an Arab League. He wanted all the Arab nations to band together, and Kissinger couldn't have that because it would upset his balance of power, which was supposed to be this is still during the Cold War.
The strategy of tension.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Assad wanted to disrupt that, but Kissinger lies to his face and says, we'll leave you alone, and then goes and screws him over.
Right.
So, and then it cuts to, I think that right from there, you go to New York City having to declare bankruptcy.
That's right. And the public bond auction where nobody shows up.
Yeah. And the bankers didn't show up. So They actually have footage of the press conference where the city comptroller or whatever saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this auction today at noon. And then they kind of show a bunch of people sitting around being like, what's going on? Oh, the bankers called. They said they'd be here a little bit later. And then cut to Trump, like getting all this discounted real estate because of that. And yeah.
There's another one called Bitter Lake.
Okay.
Which is about the deal that FDR made with King Saud. Was it King Saud, or was this or was it Faisal? I can't remember which Saudi monarch it was. But basically, making the deal to get the oil for the Middle East for the rest of eternity. That's a pretty good one too. And again, these are not stories that you hear in high school world history class, or even in your college world history class in most colleges. like I said, big asterisk, none of these movies are available on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Netflix. They're just not there.
Yeah, so don't expect to see the Buffalo Man in any of those places either.
Right. The Buffalo Man, but the Buffalo Man may run big in the BBC. As long as it doesn't have any impact or in fact, I mean, and that's the whole thing about getting back to the World Wide Web for a second. It's like we see all of this information coming from all of these different countries, and we think that we're getting it all, right? And obviously, we're not getting it all. It's being filtered. We talk about the Great Firewall of China and how the Chinese do all of these things to their population, and they keep them from looking at stuff. And it's like, why don't we have Adam Curtis movies in the United States?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, we need to neglect to see that the same thing's being done to us.
Right.
We live in Psyopticon, and we've been hyper-normalized.
Did you make that up, Psyopticon?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. I said it last week, too.
Did you? Did you get the domain name yet?
No, but go grab it.
Go grab it before somebody listening to this goes and grabs it.
Nah, they can have it. As long as they put it to good use.
That's right.
I don't need to take up any more URL real estate. All right. Does anybody have any questions? So we're last calling it.
I'm trying to figure out what Phil is asking us here. He must be laughing at something that I'm not realizing. Psyopticon. Great show today. Thank you, Phil. We try.
And Jane, this is how I would spell Psyopticon. Thank you, Corky.
I love Psyopticon.
Yes. Why is Red Foreman talking to me? See, this is hyper-normalized. TV characters want to have conversations with me. Spider's Web. Oh, yeah, that was another Curtis. He's made a ton of docu-series.
Yeah, he's got one called The Mayfair Set.
Yep.
But that goes way into the British politics, and I'm not that familiar with British politics.
So see? Okay. Harry, get out a pencil or a pen.
Or you can rewind this when this...
Yeah, I shared it, and I think I put it in the link. It's called thoughtmaybe.com. It's a repository of all sorts of documentaries that you've probably never heard of.
Because they don't get carriage anywhere.
Right. We can turn your analog friends into us. Yes, we can chat soon, Addie.
Yes, we can chat soon, Addie. Addie, are you in Ghana?
Oh,
Did
Lord.
I see that Addie was going to Ghana? He was going to Teach on the Beach with Network NewsHour in Ghana. How are the bowls going?
I think he means my little...
Oh, you know what I found this week, Tracy?
What's that?
I would love to get them, but they're very expensive. They're $888 each.
Are they the crystal ones?
No, they're giant tuning forks.
Oh, yeah.
They're these monster tuning forks.
They're beautiful.
They are beautiful. And I was looking at them and I was thinking, is this what the Egyptians had when they built the pyramids? Because I can just imagine that, we're going to find out that anti-gravity is like taking 3 tuning forks and aiming them at a giant rock and watching it float. A bunch of minions come over and push it around with their fingers,
Why not? Why not? I learned that the Earth emanates F sharp.
Yeah, and I highly recommend the video that Robert Grant did yesterday. I don't think it's public yet. I will when I find out if it's public, I'll post that on Twitter. I'll give it to Tracy and we'll put it on the website. But he does this really interesting presentation where he overlaps music with I want to call it the physics or mathematics, but let's just call it mathematics with music and mathematics and music. Let's just put it that way. And astrology, the precession of the equinox, and all of these things overlap and map to each other like one of these giant kind of Mayan calendar things. And it involves a lot of sacred geometry. It's really, really interesting how he correlates all of these things. And he believes, based on the stuff that he's figured out, that there are missing constants that Alan Green points out in his research on the pyramid, and that he's also identified a bunch of missing isotopes. That is, that there are things that mathematically should appear on the periodic chart based on his mathematical calculations that we haven't discovered yet. Like there are things, there are elements in nature that either we don't have here on Earth, or haven't experienced them here on Earth, or we don't know how to find them here on Earth, that should exist in a periodic table that he's calculated. So there's a bunch of really interesting new discoveries, and he really seems to be kind of like the Isaac Newton of our time.
There's a lot of those. So like if you want to get white pilled, go into that world.
That makes me feel, when I watch that stuff, I feel much better about myself. I feel much better about the world. I feel like, oh, maybe we are going in a good direction.
Yeah. There's all this parallel goodness going on, but we're distracted with the political theater stuff.
Yeah, the what did you call it? Psychopticon?
No, now I'm gonna wait. It's called it's what? A panopticon. So we live in a psyopticon. Yes. And I did want to welcome Sheila. I'm glad you found us. I hope you'll stick around. So please subscribe. You can join our locals. If we get up to 100, which is the goal here, we can start doing cooler stuff over there. So Addy says he's with the Jolly Green Giant this week. I don't know if we're not supposed to say his name on this platform anymore, so we will just avoid doing that.
Addy, aren't you always with the Jolly Green Giant?
Yeah, so he's saying he's going to Ghana if he gets his visa.
Yes, and he is always jolly. That's one thing you can always say about George. He's always jolly.
I like that because I like beaches, and I like getting tan.
The students are already quite tan on the Teaching the Beach. You have to catch up. You have to catch up to them. Yeah, it's Ghana.
Oh,
you have to catch up.
Yeah, that would be interesting. The bowl, it depends. It has a little stand that it goes in that might sound better than my hand. I'm working on it. We'll get better. But I was looking at crystal bowls that are specifically tuned to every note. And then I heard another conversation. I think it was on the Higher Side chats. If anybody's looking for new podcasts to listen to, I would highly recommend the Higher Side chats. And they were having a discussion about music. And apparently the Western musical scale is not the correct harmonics. They dropped a couple.
Right. Well, the mathematics. Yeah.
Is that what
Grant goes into that, and it's interesting, kind of how it kind of maps to things like the hidden Sephiroth in the hidden. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah. No, you're saying it right.
Tree of Life thing. There's supposedly a missing one there, and he goes into that and explains it mathematically, how there are these missing things, and why he understands that cause. I want to call it a cosmology of mathematics. You know how those things are laid out. You can't hear it. You can't hear the bowl. Why are you holding a butter knife up like a? Right?
The universe might be B flat. I'm just saying the Earth is F sharp. Every planet has a different note. So the universe itself might be a B flat. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm trying to do it quietly.
Watch, because Harry's a musician too. So all my musician friends, so Phil and Harry and stuff, when I get a link to this, I'd love to have you guys watch this, because I'd love. The thing is about Grant is that he's really interesting because he speaks like 8 languages, and he's a musician, and he's a mathematician, and he's a linguist. And what that means is that he looks at numbers as if they are a language, and his ability to quote long strings of numbers as if they are words, because I think that they are stored in the way that he manages things is that he looks at numbers like words, and then he recognizes that this word here is just like this word over here, and then he creates these kind of convergences of ideas. And so in his way of thinking about things, there is no differentiation between math and music. They are the same thing. They're talking about different manifestations of the same wave and wave theory in physics. So I love my quartz singing bowls. Don't be flat or be sharp. Just be natural. Music, humor.
Yes.
Tracy's got all of her guitars. She's hiding right behind her there.
Yeah.
See?
My ukulele's next to me.
Yeah. But anyway. All right. That's it for me, unless we got anything else.
No, but this is correct. Everything is frequencies, though. It's not just limited to math and music.
Yep. We're frequencies too. Our DNA is like little antennas. That's why I've kind of like re-engaged with radio, just because I want to go back and figure out the physics. These people are really into this radio stuff. They're kind of geeky, but in a weird.
No, wait, you're calling them geeky?
They make me look at me. I got a black turtleneck on. I had to blow dry my hair. I had to blow dry my hair before I got on camera today. It's like I
know. We really should film our before the show talk, because I sat down and I said, Peter, I'm going to start wearing headphones, and that way I don't have to blow dry my hair because I don't care if it's curly. And he was like, well, my hair's getting curly. I better go blow dry it, and got up and right away to go blow dry his hair.
And Rodden Peterson, who plays guitar all the time, he wants you to play your ukulele, Tracy.
I know. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't think it's even in tune.
Yeah.
I haven't touched it in a while. I'm so busy with books and all this other stuff and learning singing bowls and tarot, and I keep looking at my guitars and I'm like, maybe someday you guys will be important to me again.
Well, I'm looking at the $888 tuning forks and thinking, can I just do that with my soundbar under my TV?
Yeah, you probably could.
Yeah, I don't know if it resonates the same way though, or something. I don't know. After I get my general ham radio license, maybe I'll know more about resonance. I just bought an antenna tuner. Something I never thought I would like.
I have not heard of this blind Syrian musician. What I did hear on that thing, though, was that the Eastern musical instruments are tuned to the correct harmonics. They didn't leave anything out of their scales. So
Billy Phillips was talking about some blind Syrian.
I'm going to charge you one
Kabbalist.
Bitcoin every time I hear the word Billy Phillips.
Okay, I'll stop. I did stop talking about the woman that can't be named.
I know, but I put more credence in her than the other one.
Well, I got to tell you, when I got to the end of his thing, the wheels did start to fall off the bus. He was like,
do you want to buy a timeshare?
The wheels did really start to fall off the bus. So there's that.
Oh, I like that. Staying tuned.
You like which?
No, Corky just said staying tuned.
But what were you laughing at?
I was laughing at you with Billy Phillips and my joke that he was going to try to sell you a timeshare at the end of all of that course. It's like, come for this free weekend seminar. We'll be in beautiful, what's it called? Big Bear. And then you end up having to sit through lectures all weekend and then you walk out with a bunch of Herbalife to sell to your friends.
Or Nexium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about pattern interruption. If you go watch that documentary, The Vow, you'll see pattern interruption and neuro-linguistic programming within the first 15 minutes of that doc. They did a pattern interruption handshake the first time they met anybody. It was almost exactly what you're talking about. It was the Ericksonian, put your hand out and then wrap your other hand around. And Trump would do that. He would go up higher on the other person's forearm, like almost grab him by the elbow.
Right. Constantly.
Yeah. Oh. Peter, there's your friend Danny.
Dagny.
Dagny is from this book.
Yes.
Where we're going. And I like Time Warp Share.
I like Time Warp Share too. Phil and I used to do Time Warp Shares a lot when we were younger.
Well, I think we've come up with a bunch of t-shirts during this. So we've got Time Warp Share, the Psyopticon. What else do we have?
I don't know. I'm supposed to do virtuals or space. We never came up with the words for the other one that we were going to do.
Space all Force. Of your URLs belong to us.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. I like that.
And I wanted to start working with I want to form a Rebel Alliance. But I thought if you take the two words Rebel and Alliance and make them a poor man 2, or you slam them together, it just becomes Rebel spelled REBAL. And that way we get a little bit further away from the Southern rebels, but we still keep the Rebel name. But it's just a conglomeration of Rebel and Alliance.
I still like Americans because I just don't think that.
Do. But that's an AMC show about Russian spies. Oh, and that was another interesting thing that Jay, and this will be my last note from Jay and Richard's talk. They were saying that a lot of the quote unquote Russian spies that McCarthy unmasked were actually British intel pretending to be Russian. And I thought, ooh, that's an interesting twist.
Yeah, well, yeah. And Fleming was friends with Kim Philby, I think.
There you go.
And there's a couple of other books that Grove and Dyer were recommending after the Ian Fleming book, which are all about how the British created the CIA.
Which they did. Johnny Reb. Yeah. See, I don't know. I'm kind of over worrying about what people that we don't care about think about us.
I'm just about good brands that have staying power and can't be co-opted by, the red-blue thing was a coup. When they got all of the networks to decide that Republicans are red. If you're hearing this transmission, you are the resistance. I think that's been copyrighted by someone.
I like his screen name, though.
Hermes, son of Zeus. Yes. I talked to Hermes on CJ's Periscope when she goes walking at night. Where was I? Branding. I don't like brands that can be co-opted. I think that the Republicans deciding that it was okay to be red in 2000 was like, why did anybody think that was okay? Like, it's not okay.
That is a good joke. America did decide to overthrow itself. And Debbie, right now I've got the regular standard rider weight deck. I have a deck from boda.org. They're the ones that sell these decks that you can color in. And they're a little bit different. Peter has them too. You can go to bota.org. I'll throw up a link too on the site. I think I already have some. Then I got a deck that Salvador Dali designed, which is pretty intense and cool. And then the CERN deck. So
I'm jealous of the CERN deck.
The CERN deck is wild because we only went through like the major arcana, and it's a 78 deck, 78 card deck. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I think that's all the decks that I have. I'm eyeing up some other decks.
So have you been using them?
I use the Rider Waite deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Dali deck I haven't even opened. There's a book that accompanies it that's got a page for every card and kind of the explanation of what's on it. So I haven't touched that one yet. The CERN deck I just laid out one day to look at all of them, but haven't sat down because they have so much information crammed onto them. What I'm trying to figure out is if all that artwork is public domain or not. I would think CERN is totally funded by governments, isn't it?
I don't know. I think so.
Like, anything that the federal government has done is public domain.
Right.
Nice, ECAT. The Dali deck is wild. It's really cool. Because he's used paintings that you would recognize right away. He's got Marie Antoinette in there. And I think my favorite, it's the Four of Swords, where he's got Marat murdered in the bathtub, which was a famous painting. And Marat was the blue check journalist of the French Revolution. And some woman got it in her head that if she shut him up, it would end all their nonsense. And she went into his house. And at that point, he had, I think it was really bad eczema and a couple other skin issues. So he was basically living in his bathtub. And she got past his maids and all this and went to the bathtub and stabbed him a couple of times. So that's Dali's Four of Swords card. It's pretty cool. But, all right, let's see. Nope, I bought my first set. So, if you would like, if you don't have a set and you want to be gifted a set, I will gift you a set.
Is that a mitzvah?
I don't know. Yeah.
Dali was a target of MK Ultra.
Maybe I don't know that Dali needed to be targeted by MK Ultra. I think Dali was one of those people who didn't need psychedelic drugs to experience other realms. If you look at his paintings, and the story kind of behind the cards, and Ekat's right, like he used collage on all of them, was that he had a profound refiguring of the world after the atomic bomb and kind of what all that meant. So he got into studying more occult things. And I think that those thoughts were always in his subconscious to begin with. And it plays out in his
Well, that's
era.
what Carl Jung said.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a collective unconscious. And that we're basically all drawing from the same pool.
Yes. So
anyway. All right, you ready?
I do. Well, Jane, get yourself a set. And I'm serious. If you need a set and you feel like it can only be something that's gifted to you, I would be happy to send you a deck of Rider-Waite's. And the Crowley deck is on my list. The Thoth deck.
All right. Well, you buy the tarot cards. I'll buy the radio. And then
Okay. And then I can read tarot cards over the radio.
Yeah, it is exegetical, Phil. I mean, a lot of the stuff, I am going to try to share some of that Billy Phillips stuff with you, because Phil does speak Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek and a bunch of other languages. He doesn't.
Well, he should just get the Zohar and read it himself.
All 27 volumes of it or something.
Well, it's better than buying a timeshare with you.
Phil may actually already have the Zohar. Do you already have the Zohar, Phil? Because Phil's got a pretty big library, like Pat does. We do have to get Phil and Pat together on one of these shows. That we should. Yeah. We should calendar that.
We should. And Jane, I don't know. I mean, can't I just get Amazon France and just have it sent to you through there, so I don't have to deal with international postage? We'll figure this out. Find a way to get to me. I think our link trees are up. You can DM me somewhere or find me. That's how we'll know that you're really meant to have these cards. All right.
Phil has no Zohar. Yeah, and Pat has a Zohar. And then I sent you that video, Tracy, where the man that won't be named claims there's missing pieces of the Zohar.
I'm not letting that man influence anything in my brain.
Okay.
So, and no, to answer your question,
I get it. The medium is the message.
No, the messenger is the message, and I think he's muddling the message.
Okay.
I think he's got a hack. He's like, oh, I've got all the answers. You can learn the whole thing, the Zohar, in 25 minutes with my originally priced at $400, but just for you, $99.95. And I unfortunately don't have any of my decks sitting here, so I can't pull a card for you. I can tell you that today I pulled the 8 of Wands card this morning.
I have my blanks. I could pull one. Or do they count if they're not?
That's just the major arcana, too. It's not all 78.
Okay, well, I can't even open it, so.
So fail. Oh, all right. So yes, we do have the gift of gab.
All right.
No. All right, there we go. Get me a link.
Terrific.
What did what say? The eight of Wands. It's about extroversion, action, and hustle, swiftness, rapid change of pace, quick change of direction, busy schedule, enthusiasm, great energy and vitality, strong motivation and productivity, accomplishment, success, rapid results, competition, intense effort, short-term goals, working against the clock, a little time to prepare, brainstorming inspiration, pushing it to the limit, and overcoming obstacles, readiness, willpower, and travel. So I think all those things are probably true except for travel.
You doubt your source?
Well, this is just one interpretation of these. Like, I go to 5 or 6 different places after I pull a card. This is the only one that's on my iPad.
Okay. Tom Terrific.
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
I want to say that was like a cartoon character from the 70s.
Yes, he's divination.
Divination, yes.
Yes.
Or maybe crypto something. That's the other way of looking at it.
Could be. What deck was that? That was the Rider-Waite. I mean, I think the interpretations are pretty much the same across the board. Some people have slightly different interpretations, but that was just standard Rider-Waite deck.
And where did those interpretations come from?
This was a book that I got that was recommended by Mark Passio after watching his thing, and it's called The Path of the Tarot.
And where did the people who wrote The Path of the Tarot get that wisdom?
From studying all the tarot and condensing it. Mm-hmm. So it is very condensed. I look at biddytarot.com too as a decent site where she spends a lot of time breaking down the symbology.
Alrighty then.
All right. So I will be adding my email address to the website so that we can get Jane her pack of cards.
All right.
And other people can reach out if they would like to.
Okay, so what am I supposed to look up? Tom Terrific?
Yes.
All right. I'll look up Tom Terrific.
All right. Well, as of now, we'll be back next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Unless we can find some better time to do it.
Yes. But make sure that you are subscribed and have hit the notification bell, so that way you'll be forewarned. If you're in the locals channel and we decide we're going to record a different day, I will put that up in there. Oh, thank you, ECAT. Royal Road Tarot. I will check that one out. Daylight time. Yes, we're living in daylight time right now. Are we not? Daylight savings time? So it's EDT? Or is it EST? I don't know. It's East Coast 4 o'clock. How about that? All times are given in East Coast.
All right, very good.
Jane, please give me your
Is this like that game where you get a gift and then people can steal it 3 times?
Yeah, we always called that Chinese Pollyanna, but I'm sure that would be frowned upon right now.
You called it Chinese Pollyanna?
Yes. No, we're in standard time. You know what I mean. East Coast, 4 p.m. It's PST. Good. Then 1 p.m. PST. Pacific Standard Time. I don't abide by these government edicts about what time it is.
I go with the Chicago Transit Authority. Does anybody know what time it is? Does anybody really care? School.
Correct. All right. If you want to keep chatting with us, you can find us on Locals. You can find us on Telegram. You can find Peter and my link trees with all of our social media by going to therealityos.com. And you'll see the little links up in the top that I'm going to add right after we get off of this. Let's say Peter and Tracy. Put our link trees on there. Ah, it's a white elephant. Is that where you can steal the presents from people, though? That's the fun one.
Yeah, I think that is the white elephant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Infidel Apostate, can you throw up the Telegram? He did flood the Telegram. Oh, thank you. See, this is what good associate producers are doing. We might have to promote you.
Yes. What time zone are you in, Infidel Apostate?
So that's where we are on Telegram. Europe might be abandoning daylight savings time. Good.
Like, unless you have a dog that you walk. The only good defense I've ever heard of daylight savings time is people who have dogs don't like to walk their dogs in the dark.
Well, we went through this before. It was to keep children not standing at the bus stop in the dark in the morning. All right. All right, everybody. We can sit here and talk all night. So
we'll see you later.
yes.
Bye now.